So with the recent announcement that characters in Honkai Star Rail would be receiving buffs, it had me thinking about ways those characters could be buffed. And the main one I want to talk about today is Jingliu. Jingliu is my favorite character in the game. I've had her since day one and I've played her since. But Jingliu has not been having the best time as of late, and that is for a variety of reasons. So today we'll be going over Jingliu as a character, discussing why she's weak now, and even making her a new kit. So if you don't know what Jingliu does, I'll give you a brief summary. Jingliu is an ice destruction character who focuses on doing most of her damage with her enhanced skill. Her basic attack is useless. That's all you need to know. When you use your skill, Transcendent Flash, you gain 1 stack of Syzygy, and when Jingliu gets 2 stacks, she enters the Spectral Transmigration state, advancing herself forward by 100%. When in this state, she gains 50% crit rate and her attack is massively buffed at the cost of a very small amount of her allies' HP. Her ultimate deals damage as well as giving her 1 more stack of Syzygy. When she runs out of stacks, she will exit the Spectral Transmigration state. Her technique gives her a freeze aura, which she then has a small chance to freeze enemies at the start of the battle, and gives herself 1 stack of Syzygy. So to simplify, get in Spectral mode, get big buff, do damage. She's a pretty straightforward character. She sounds pretty good, but why is she so weak now? Well, we need to go back and look at how she was made in the first place. Jingliu's biggest selling point was how accessible she was, and how she was very good at low investment. She was pretty much Yanqing without any of the downsides. Her ability to get a ton of stats for free made her an easy pickup for a lot of damage easily and consistently. She had a very high floor, but she also had a much lower ceiling. She buffed herself by quite a lot, but in order to prevent her from being too broken, they left her multipliers pretty weak, 500 and 600% in a 3-target scenario with her skill and ultimate respectively. Now this wouldn't have been a problem if the damage ceiling wasn't now so absurdly high, but since it is, she suffers a lot more in the current climate. And as time went on, the cracks in her base kit design started to show. After Jingliu enters her Spectral Transmigration state, she is advanced forward by 100%, and it counts as a separate turn, meaning that characters with 1-turn buffs are lost when this occurs. The most common example of this is Bronya. Bronya's skill only lasts for 1 turn, so your buffs aren't up for about a third of the time. This was a massive issue that has only recently been fixed with the release of Sunday, who has buffs that last for more than 1 turn. The uptime of the Spectral Transmigration state has become a much larger downside. When she exits the state, her damage just completely falls off a cliff, and she is essentially doing nothing for 2 turns. And when her damage is already pretty low for today's standards, you feel it very hard. She also has a massive problem of being too self-reliant on everything her kit gives her, that buffs from her team do not help her as much as it would other characters. She gives herself a ton of attack, 50 crit rate, she builds a lot of crit damage at a baseline, so she's pretty much given everything she needs besides damage percent. And given she has no dedicated support compared to other characters with roles like Super Break or Follow Up, it's not doing her any favors. And this is sorta hard to solve because that's pretty much the identity of her kit. She goes into her Mara Struck form, massively enhancing her power. So you might think that Jingliu looks pretty bad, and right now, yeah, she is. So with her being pretty much useless right now, Hoyoverse announced that they would be buffing her. Now this next part is going to cover some leaks, so if you don't want to hear about that, I recommend skipping ahead. There was a leak going around showing Jingliu's possible buffs, and I want to talk about why they aren't that great. The first thing this leak says is that she would become HP scaling instead of attack scaling. This sounds like it could be a good idea on paper, and it does help her to an extent, but it does cause more problems than people may realize. Firstly, it kills her synergy with Robin and it hurts her synergy with Bronya. Your best bet will still be Sunday by a mile, but then you'd also want Tribby. So if you pulled a Robin, or even a Robin E1 for your Jingliu, you just got massively fucked over. And if she does keep HP scaling mechanics, then I guarantee you the new healer Hyacine will be her best in slot as well. So that's 2 characters that you now need. It also really impacts her free-to-play light cones. On the Fall of an Aeon has been a very good light cone ever since the game came out, but now Jingliu won't be able to use it anymore. If you don't have her signature, then her only options are Secret Vow, which you need to get lucky on banners for, or you use the Wrap Event light cone, which even that is a little bit iffy with her because Jingliu does not drain her own HP. And not to mention that now you need to farm brand new relics, which can take a very long time. I'm someone who min-maxed Jingliu as hard as I could, but now I need to get new relics with HP this time. It's honestly very frustrating. And I've heard people say this is good because it would give her a niche, and while yes it does, she's still going to be worse than everything we already have. And realistically, there will be very little reason to actually play Jingliu unless you really like her. She would pretty much just be a budget casteress. This leak also says she would gain 1 more stack of Syzygy when she enters her Spectral state, so it's essentially her E6 built in. Now this is actually a good buff. Giving her another stack would help her dish out more in her damage windows instead of being out of commission for 2 turns only after doing 2 to 3 enhanced skills. This is something I thought Jingliu actually needed, so it's great that it's seemingly being implemented now. The final supposed buff would be changing her attack buff in her Spectral state to crit damage. Now obviously if she were to be HP scaling, then the attack boost would simply be wasted on her, so they changed it. I don't really know how to feel about this, as you are already getting a lot of crit damage at a baseline. Jingliu already builds a ton of crit damage, as she does need to build any crit rate with the 50 from her enhanced state, as well as 20 from Sunday. Sunday also gives a lot of crit damage, and Robin gives a bit as well. So just stacking on more crit damage won't help her as much as giving her a different buff. Now, these are pretty early leaks, and I expect them to change more, but this is honestly a pretty disappointing buff. It does not address her fundamental problems, and it would still leave her feeling underwhelming. Since the design team at Hoyoverse doesn't seem to actually play this character, I decided that I would try to improve her kit. Disclaimer, I am not a game designer, but these are just some ideas that I had for fun. So first of all, increase her multipliers across the board. She needs that to keep up with today's meta. Her basic attack is fine how it is, it's not an important part of her kit, so we can just leave it alone. Her unenhanced skill is also pretty underwhelming and is only used to gain stacks for her enhanced skill. When Jingliu gains 2 stacks of Syzygy, let her start out with 3 stacks instead of 1. This is a very simple but effective buff. We've even seen that this is actually already in the game in Jingliu's E6, and given how now even E6 Jingliu is bad, she kinda needs all the help she can get. It'll give her some more uptime without having to leave her state for a bit longer, and you may be able to squeeze out more ultimates if you're able to get it up.
And speaking of her ult, I went back and forth on whether I should increase the stat gain from 1 to 2, but ultimately I decided against it. I gave her another way to help increase her stat gain, which we'll talk about later.
As for her talent, where her enhanced state actually comes from, it's a little bit more complicated. Destruction characters typically have some sort of cost to do their damage. Blade drains his own HP, Yunli needs to get hit, Maide has to play auto battle, etc. Jingliu does drain her allies' HP to get her massive attack buff, but the HP drain is so minimal that unless you're playing sustainless, it almost doesn't even matter. It would be possible to increase the amount of HP drained in order to have synergy with the potential new support in the future. Now, I said before I didn't really like the idea of giving her more HP mechanics as a drawback to her kit, but I sort of had to keep it because I still want to keep the fundamentals of her kit mostly the same. But if it were to happen, we do have characters like Maide and casters who drain HP to a much larger degree, so if a new support comes out for them, it could very well help out Jingliu as well. And her spectral state itself gives a lot of attack as well as crit rate. It is nice to get those free stats and make her a lot easier to build, but she won't benefit from those stats as much as other characters would. So with that said, I decided to lower her crit rate boost from 50% to 30%. I did this for 2 reasons. 1, it would allow her to have higher base numbers as Hoyo wouldn't have to compromise with lower multipliers. And 2, it would help out her synergy even more with characters like Sunday, who already gives her 20 crit rate, letting you have a bit of an easier time with relics. And as someone who has a 30/280 crit ratio, farming her is very painful. As for her attack buff, it's a similar story. She does gain a decent bit of attack from outside sources like Robin and Ho-Ho, so we have a few options here. First, lower her attack buff to make up for more base multipliers. Second, take out the attack boost and make it part of her damage multiplier instead, similar to something like the Herda. Or third, give her a brand new stat like Vulnerability, Res Pen, Def Ignore, or something else to boost her damage. Realistically, I don't see this massive attack boost going anywhere, but they still could change it around if they want to. And if they make it so her attack buff is still good and doesn't sacrifice her multipliers too hard, then that's fine by me. We also need to fix her traces because they are absolutely terrible. Her A2, Death Realm, gives her 35 effect res, which is not bad, but I still don't feel like it's worthy of a major trace. We can make it so that Jingliu is completely immune to crowd control, similar to Maide, or we can make it so that if she does get crowd controlled, she will immediately be cleansed and gain some sort of buff. Her A4, Sword Champion, advances her action forward by 10% after using her unenhanced skill. This really needs an upgrade. I propose a buff for where she exits her Spectral Transmigration state, she advances her action forward by 100%. This could help her get back into her state faster and do more damage. Her A6, Frost Wraith, gives her 20% more ultimate damage when she's inside of her spectral state. We could simply up this damage, but I decided to change this up. Instead, I would want to give her energy regen in order to help her get her ult back faster. So to summarize, here is what Jingliu needs. A pretty drastic multiplier buff across the board so she can compete in the current meta, better uptime on both her buffs and her spectral state to keep her damage up, some new major traces to replace her dated ones, and lastly, a possible way to have synergy with newer characters, such as buffing her HP drain to a more significant degree, helping her have a bit more use in the future. If some of these were to be addressed, Jingliu would easily become a much better character, possibly becoming a meta unit again. I really do hope Hoyo does end up making her strong because I know people would love to use their favorite character again. If they make it good, I might even go for her Eidolons. HSR has really messed up the game balance, but I'm willing to give them a chance to fix it. This is only our first set of buffed characters, and if it goes well, the game would end up in a much better spot.
And that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I had quite a lot of fun making Jingliu a new kit, but I want to hear from you. What would you do to improve Jingliu's kit? Let me know in the comments, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and consider subscribing as we are getting close to 10,000 subs. And maybe join the Discord down below if you want a place to come and chat. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.